Wandavision is good. Season 1, Episode 5. Some really big things happen in this episode, and it seems like the show is finally going to be moving away from the fake sitcom nonsense we've gotten at the start. At least for the most part. It will still be present, but it's treated more like background scenery as opposed to the main part of the show. There are some very cool things that happen in this episode, including what appears to be the introduction of the Xmen to the MCU. Unfortunately, there's also something incredibly bad that is slowly working its way into the show, and if you know anything about Disney, you can probably guess what that is.
Will be. When it fits a woman.
We start the episode with another time jump. The fake reality has moved forward into the late 80s and is now being modeled off of old TV shows like Full House. Wanda and Vision are trying to deal with the twins, who at this point are still babies and won't stop crying. Wanda attempts to use her powers to get the twins to go to sleep, but it simply doesn't work, and her powers don't seem to have any effect on them. Later in the episode, we'll also find out that the twins don't appear to be existing people. Everyone else in the town is a real person that has been telepathically controlled to fit whatever role is needed, and outside, S.W.O.R.D. has been able to identify those people with their real identities. This likely means that there's something extra strange going on with the twins. The annoying neighbor lady comes by and offers to help with the twins, who are still crying, but Vision doesn't like this and makes up a whole bunch of reasons on why the annoying neighbor lady shouldn't be allowed to go near the twins or take care of them. He gets the feeling that something is a little wrong, and this is only amplified when the neighbor lady asks Wanda if she would like to reset the scene, and this implying that the neighbor lady knows that reality has been changed within the town, and that Wanda has the ability to revert things that she doesn't like. But for whatever reason, Wanda doesn't quite seem to catch on with what the annoying lady is trying to say, but Vision now fully knows that something is definitely wrong with the situation.
Most illogical.
However, their discussion is interrupted when they suddenly notice that everything has gone quiet and the twins have stopped crying, but when they turn around to look, they now see that their twins have aged up about 5 years. At this point, the fake show introduction happens, and it lasts for over a minute and a half. This is more of the same problem from the first couple episodes. I get the joke that they're trying to do, and the fake intro is kind of funny. It does have pictures of Vision when he was growing up, and obviously that didn't happen, but it's still funny to see. But like with the first couple episodes, the joke is fine. The problem is that they take a 20-second joke and they drag it out way too much. There is clearly an ongoing issue with this show where a bunch of stuff feels like they're just trying to cram it in order to fill time. On top of the fact that the actual content within each episode is much shorter than the entire video length. For example, in this episode, the entire video is a little bit over 41 minutes long, but the first minute and a half is taken up by recaps and then the official Marvel intro. Then we just got the fake intro, which is another minute and a half plus worth of time that's being taken out. And then the last 7.5 minutes of the episode is credits. So the actual content that we're getting for each episode is fairly small, and when they cram in stuff like the fake intro here, among some other stuff that they try to slap into the episodes, WandaVision episodes feel like a bag of potato chips. Sure, there's some good content that you can enjoy, but the rest of the bag is just full of empty air.
Boo! Not cool!
Getting back to the show, on the next scene, Rambo is being checked by a military nurse. An X-ray scan of some kind is being performed, but the results are corrupted, and the scan appears to be blank. However, Rambo refuses to let them perform any more tests and leaves the tent. The members of S.W.O.R.D. go into a briefing where they're discussing the new information about Wanda and the town, and this, unfortunately, is where the Disney nonsense starts creeping in. WandaVision is going to be the main launching point for Phase 4 of the MCU, and in case you didn't know, Disney and Marvel plan on cranking up the woke garbage. This is not guessing or speculation. Disney and Marvel have explicitly said that is their plan. We can see that starting to creep into the show with how the characters are handled in this scene and for the rest of the episode. Essentially, this guy, the director of S.W.O.R.D., is treated like an idiotic bad leader who doesn't know what he's doing. These other characters insult him behind his back and are portrayed as being significantly smarter, more talented, and just in every way better than he is. Even though they're trying to be very subtle with this, if you have an IQ above room temperature, it's incredibly obvious what they're trying to do. And it's entirely based on the surface level characteristics of these individuals.
That's racist.
During the briefing, the director wants to treat Wanda as an enemy because she has taken over an entire town and is using her powers to control its people. Rambo then makes the mind-numbingly stupid argument that Wanda isn't actually bad and that she's somehow not wrong for taking over the town and the people because she also put up an energy field that prevents other people from going inside. So Rambo's argument is that Wanda controlling 1,000 people is okay because it's not more than 1,000.
I'm sorry. What?
We find out that shortly after the events of Endgame, Wanda broke into a facility that was holding Vision's body. After she stole it, she went to the town of Westview and then began making her changes. It's pointed out that this is a clear violation of the Sokovia Accord and even breaks the last wishes of Vision, who had made a will explicitly stating that he did not want his body to be used in any way after his death. Back in the town, twins have found a dog, and Wanda reluctantly agrees to let them keep it after the twins are able to age themselves up to 10. Suddenly, the annoying neighbor lady shows up with a doghouse. Vision notices how strangely convenient and unusual that is. Wanda then proceeds to use her powers to create a dog collar out of nothing, which makes Vision very upset. He says that they are supposed to be hiding their powers and that they had agreed to it, but Wanda used them right in front of the annoying neighbor lady, and this creates a rift between Wanda and Vision. Outside in the S.W.O.R.D. camp, the three sufficiently diverse characters are talking about how they can get back into the town. They also bring up the idea that Wanda would have been able to single-handedly defeat Thanos, and that no one else even came close. Not only is this objectively wrong, it's also really stupid that they even tried to imply it. However, Jimmy chimes in with some extra stupid virtue signaling of his own to say that Captain Marvel could have done it as well. After that stupidity is done, they discover something about the clothing that Rambo had been wearing when she was inside the town. Up until now, S.W.O.R.D. had believed that Wanda was only using her telepathic powers and simply making people believe the things that they were seeing. But there's a problem with that because Rambo's clothes from when she was inside the town still exist. And in fact, upon testing, they are found out to be partially made out of Kevlar, which means that Wanda is not just making people see illusions, but instead is altering the reality of the objects that are inside the town. In the fake show, Vision is back at work, and the office has just started using some newfangled technology called computers. Vision shows one of his coworkers how to connect it to the internet, and then receives an email that appears to be a secret communication from S.W.O.R.D. When the email arrives, everyone in the office begins reciting it out loud at the same time, as if they were somehow receiving it and being controlled by it. Vision uses his powers to free one of his coworkers from the telepathic control that Wanda has put him under, and it causes the man to panic. He claims that being under the control is painful and terrifying. Vision quickly reverses this so that his coworker is once again under Wanda's control, which makes him stop panicking, but is kinda, bad, because, the guy just said that it was really painful and terrifying, and he was panicking about it, so Vision, in an attempt to stop him from panicking, puts him back in the place where it's painful and terrifying. So, I guess, pick the worst solution and go with it, I guess.
Are we the baddies?
S.W.O.R.D. decides to make another attempt to communicate with Wanda, and this time they're going to be using a more sophisticated drone. However, when Wanda sees it, she begins using her powers, and Rambo loses control of the drone. The director then gives the order to fire on Wanda. It doesn't seem to work, and Rambo scolds the director because clearly low-level employees are going to be berating the director of the entire organization. Outside, they're alerted as Wanda crosses through the energy field and now looks like she normally would in the MCU. She tosses the destroyed drone and insists that she should be left alone. The director correctly says that's not possible because Wanda has taken the entire town hostage, but then Wanda responds by saying she's not the one with the guns.
Where the goddamn gun?
Yes, because apparently all guns are bad or something. Oh my god, this is just like dumb on levels that I can't even begin to express. Oh sure, you've taken an entire town and about 1,000 people hostage, but hey, at least you didn't use a gun to do it. This reminds me of Wonder Woman 1984, where she talks about how she hates guns and she breaks them, and then proceeds to throw the guys off of the top of a roof of a building, which almost certainly would have killed all of them. The amount of mental gymnastics you need to go through in order to make either of these two scenarios even remotely logical is worthy of a gold medal.
What can I say except...
It's pretty obvious that Disney is trying to make some kind of a statement here, but oh boy is it dumb. Wanda says that no one is taking her family away, and then telepathically controls all the soldiers in the area, and they point their weapons at the director instead. Wanda then goes back inside the energy field, and the next we see, she and the twins are looking for the dog, which has gone missing. But apparently the dog ate some kind of poison plants and just died.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
The twins then try to convince Wanda to use her powers to bring the dog back to life, but Wanda refuses. It's clear that the twins are aware that Wanda is able to control reality and even bring things back to life, although they never actually mention anything about Vision or her doing it to him. This situation makes me think that someone is manipulating the situation to force Wanda into using her powers in certain ways that maybe she shouldn't be. And if you know anything about the comics, one of the characters that would likely do something like this is Mephisto. Back home, Wanda and Vision talk about the day's events and get into a big argument where Vision knows something is wrong and Wanda simply doesn't want to talk about it. She even tries to roll the credits of the fake show to end the argument so that Vision can't actually get his point across. He's extremely frustrated because he can't remember anything about his past or even what exists outside the town. The argument escalates until they're interrupted by the doorbell. Wanda answers the door to see her dead brother Pietro. However, it's not the exact same one. It's not the Quicksilver Pietro from the MCU, it's the Quicksilver from the X-Men movies. Wanda doesn't seem to realize this, however, the SWORD agents watching the fake show from outside make comments that Wanda has recast her brother.
Who are you?
Of course, they don't know that it's Quicksilver from the X-Men universe, they just believe that Wanda is making her brother look different for some unknown reason. One of the problems with the MCU when it first started was that Marvel didn't have the rights to all the different comic book characters, even though they were Marvel characters. Things like mutants couldn't even be mentioned. That changed when Disney bought out the Fox Studios and regained control over a substantial amount of those comic book characters. There are still some, like Spider-Man, that Marvel doesn't have control over. Sony still has the rights to the Spider-Man character, which is kind of why there was some problems about a year or so ago. Ever since Disney and Marvel regained control of the X-Men characters, however, it's been a bit of a mystery as to how they would be introduced to the MCU. Some theories were using different timelines or different dimensions. However, what now seems to be a big possibility is that Wanda will either change reality or cause a merger of different dimensions and timelines, which will allow the X-Men and mutants to exist in the MCU. That brings up another problem that has recently surfaced in the MCU, that certain characters are so unbelievably powerful that they render any villain and any threat to be kind of a meaningless joke.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
In an effort to push the woke envelope as far as possible, Captain Marvel was made to be stronger than all of the other Avengers combined. This is why that character barely showed up at all in the Endgame movie. It was obvious that they had so ridiculously overpowered the character that she probably could have defeated Thanos and his entire army by herself. Which, by the way, could never actually happen in the comics, as comic book Thanos would mop the floor with Captain Marvel. But just like Captain Marvel being ridiculously overpowered in the MCU, making it difficult for villains to pose a threat, in a similar way, Quicksilver from the X-Men movies presents the same problem. The X-Men Quicksilver is 1,000,000 times stronger than the MCU Quicksilver Pietro. The X-Men version can run so fast that time literally stands still, whereas the MCU Pietro version moved a little bit fast, but he still just ended up getting killed by a whole bunch of bullets. A lot of the other X-Men from those movies also have powers that are substantially stronger than nearly every character in the MCU. Again, creating the problem of how do you have the villain pose an actual threat when the heroes are just ridiculously overpowered. So I have a feeling because of this, there is a decent chance that when the X-Men do get introduced to the MCU, a lot of them will probably be depowered quite a bit. Otherwise, it's just gonna get dumb. Overall, a pretty decent episode. On the one hand, it looks like there is a tremendous amount of potential moving forward, but on the other hand, the creeping woke garbage is only going to get worse. It's kind of like ordering a pizza, but the place that's making it insists on adding rotten fruit as one of the toppings, whether you like it or not. If it only ruins one of the pieces of pizza, then you can just kind of ignore it and still enjoy the rest of the pizza, but if it covers the whole thing, well, in that case, I don't want to eat the pizza anymore. So we're just gonna have to wait and see how much rotten fruit Disney decides to add. But that's the end of episode 5.